We're so glad that you are checking us out on YouTube so that you can watch the lesson from last night or the previous weeks. And whether you are stuck at home in quarantine and sick, or your parents are not feeling comfortable with you coming to be with us in person at the well, that's fine. But that is just for you if you are in that situation. This is not to make so that you don't have to come on Wednesday nights or that you can just watch it later. This is only a resource for those who are stuck at home and are not able to be with us in person. So please, if you are watching this, make sure that you are making it a priority to come with us on Wednesday nights so that we can see you, because we miss you. There's a couple of things. Fall schedules are out and you can get those. If you haven't gotten that, contact me and I can make sure that you get those. And play the bumper, because here it comes. So, hopefully in your school career, you've learned about measuring systems, where you have the metric system, and that basically the whole world uses, except for us in America. And the metric system has like the grams, the liters, the meters, the kilometers, all of that fun stuff, and it makes sense of how they all equal to each other. But then here in America, we use some messed up system that makes no sense. How there's 12 inches in a feet, but then there's so many feet in a mile, or then how there's liters, or not liters, ounces and tablespoons and teaspoons, and all this fun measuring that doesn't make sense. But hopefully you learned a little bit about measuring systems. And while there's different standards for measuring systems, like how much flour we should put into a cake, or how far away we are from our best friend's house, there is one standard of measurement that we all use, and it's called comparison. And you've heard this word. Comparison is when we measure something about ourselves against something about someone else. And we take this about ourselves and compare it to that in someone else's life. And you think this pair of shoes is awesome until you see that pair of shoes. You think this guy you're dating is really great until you see that guy your best friend's dating. Or you think this grade is amazing until you hear about that grade that other people got. We are constantly comparing ourselves to other things around us. Because comparison is the way we measure this in our lives compared to that in someone else's. And it affects all of our lives whether we realize it or not. But here's the thing about comparison. It can lead us to believe things that just are not true, things about ourselves and others. And when we compare ourselves to others, we can start to believe that their lives are better than ours in some way. Because they have so many followers on Instagram, or that they made the game-winning shot, or they got this part in the school play that you really wanted, or they got to take that girl to the school dance, or they have more friends that you could ever dream of. Their lives are pretty much perfect. But let's be honest. We know that's not true if we really dig deep down, because nobody is perfect. Then comparison so leaves us feeling like our this will never measure up to their that. And when that happens, there's some things that we feel. One thing that some may feel is disappointment, where we think, why not me? We're disappointed. We see what they have or what they get to do, and we look at what we have or what we get to do, and we feel disappointed. Why don't I get to be able to do that? Other of us feel frustrated. We get really angry and are angry that why do I not get this? I deserve it more than them. That we see what they have and we want it so much that we are angry that we don't have it. But others may actually just feel hopeless, where they see what other people have, what their friends have, what they get to do, and just feel hopeless knowing that they're never going to get to that point. And they just feel hopeless because of that. And those are all some negative feelings that you may feel. But others of you may be on the other side, where you are dealing with good feelings kind of about comparison, but it's really bad that you do have good feelings. Like where comparison, it just motivates you. Where it just motivates you to be so much better than everyone else, and you just want to be the best and be perfect compared to everyone else. And there's nothing wrong about being motivated to be better, but it's not good when comparison is the only reason you want to be better. Or some of you actually just feel really good when you compare yourself to other people, that you look at what they got on the grade and you see that you did better. Or that you look at how many friends you have and you see, no one has as many friends as I do, or no one has as many followers on Instagram as I do. I have it made. And that's a big issue worth of pride, because comparison, it can either feeling lost and sad and in despair, or it's going to leave you in a place of pride and thinking that you have it all. So no matter where you are, regardless of what you feel when you compare yourself to others, because you do compare yourself to something else or someone else. But here's the thing that is true about comparison. It never truly takes you anywhere. It really doesn't. Comparison does not take you anywhere that you want to be. Because as soon as you reach the thing that you desperately wanted, and you finally got to their that instead of your this, and you finally can just relax and don't have to worry about comparing or wanting something else. There's always something else you want, and it's this never-ending cycle. And you do it no matter what you think you do it, I promise it. And I know when I was in high school, I was my sophomore year, I auditioned for a school play. And literally every one of my friends that auditioned got in, and it was only 11 people in the whole play, and it was basically my entire friend group, and guess who didn't get in? Me. I was so disappointed and frustrated that I didn't get to be in this play with all my friends, and I was just so sad about it, and it took me nowhere, where I just started comparing myself to them, thinking how I wanted it so much, or I would have been better than them that when they were doing it. And in reality, no matter how much I did that, it didn't change anything. I still wasn't in the play, no matter how much I wanted to be in the play. So I don't know about you, but there has to be a better way than doing this for comparison. And that's the truth, because in the Bible, it says this. There's a guy named Paul, and the Bible gives us truth that we can know about comparison. And we're gonna look at 2 Corinthians, and it's written by Paul, and he's one of the guys that really spread the Christian faith in the early church. He was a stand-up dude. And he is writing to a group of believers who are in the city of Corinth that are dealing with comparison. And this is what it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as a standard of measurement. How ignorant. So Paul kind of just lays it out there for him. And he's specifically talking about these false teachers that are comparing themselves to other spirituality, and they think that they're amazing. And whether you may not be being a false teacher, but we do struggle with comparison, I think it still applies to us today. Because this is what Paul is basically saying. He says, listen, comparing yourself to others, that is not smart and it sucks. It's not wise, it's not helpful. So let's just not do it, okay? That's basically what Paul is saying. And he tells us this because when we compare ourselves to each other, we're using the wrong measurement. When we use the wrong measurement, our things will not work out well. The other day, I made some cookies, and I'm not good at baking, I'm gonna be real honest. And instead of putting a teaspoon of baking soda into these cookies, I put a tablespoon in. And let me tell you, they were gross. It was disgusting because I used the wrong measurement, and it doesn't work when we use the wrong measurement. And when we use the wrong measurement, we look at the life on social media that someone has, we look at the families that other people have and compare it to ourselves, or we just look at someone else and how they look and look at ourselves and we aren't happy with what we see. No matter what we compare ourselves to, we are always on the losing end when we compare ourselves to others. And that's because we're looking in the wrong place. We're using the wrong measurement. And I know this is true not only because of how comparison makes us feel, but because something else that Paul said in 2 Corinthians. And this is just a couple verses down. He says, when people commend or compliment or praise themselves, it doesn't count for much. The important thing is for the Lord to commend them. 2 Corinthians 10:18. So this passage is telling you it doesn't matter how much you commend yourself or how much other people commend yourself. If the Lord isn't commending you, it doesn't count for much anyway. And that's because the measure it's not about how we measure up against other people. It's not about how our this stands in place in comparison to their that. It doesn't count for much. That's what Paul tells us. That's what the Bible tells us. But what does count a lot is how much God loves us and how God sees us. That is our standard. And that's a place that we can look to see and compare. Because when we compare God's love for us to compare to God's love for someone else, it's the same. God's love for everyone is equal. And I know this is true because we look at the life of Jesus and we see how he interacted with people while he was on earth. And what did he do? He loved everyone that he came into contact with. Even the worst people that you can think of, he loved them just as much as he loved the disciples. Just as much as he loved everyone else around him, because God's love does not compare you to other people. God's love only sees you and loves you no matter what. And that's something that we can rest in. I know that when I am stuck in this cycle of comparing myself to others, comparing how I'm doing in life compared to others, sometimes it can make me feel prideful, or sometimes it can make me feel really disappointed. But no matter what area I am, I know that I can rest and sit in knowing that God's love for me is just as much as anyone else, because it's not compared. God doesn't compare me to other people. God doesn't compare you to others. And that is so relieving, that I don't have to measure up to the people around me. I'm already measured up to Jesus by his sacrifice that he gave for us. God isn't using others around you to see how you measure up. He doesn't bring you up to your small group leader and see, this person right here, you're not doing as well as them. Or you are doing better than good job. He doesn't do that. He is simply looking at you through his eyes and his eyes only. He's only seeing your life through his love. And that's a place that you will always measure up. So if this is true, and we know that's true because the Bible says it, what can we do to stop comparing ourselves to each other? If God truly doesn't compare you to others, how can we stop doing that in our own lives? And there's this book called Proverbs with a lot of wisdom. And in Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." In comparison, it starts in our hearts. It starts in our hearts. So if we want to stop comparison, we need to start by looking at our heart and guarding our heart and stopping it in our heart. And it starts because we see something and it makes us feel unhappy with this compared to that. So if we want to avoid those feelings, if we want to protect ourselves from the damage comparison does, we need to guard our hearts. And here's 3 ways that we can do it. One is pay attention to your feelings. Your feelings are signals to how you should be reacting to life. If you find yourself comparing yourself to someone, or you find that your mood or outlook changes when you start to compare yourself to someone else, does it bring you disappointment, frustrated? Does it leave you angry or anxious? If it does, take note of those feelings. See what is happening. See that it's bad for you. Those feelings are clues for you that you need to turn around. For those of you that are learning to drive, hopefully you learned about the turn signal. It's amazing. You just flick it up and it tells other people that you're turning. It's a turn signal. And your feelings are signals telling you that you need to turn around if you're having these amount of negative feelings. Find out what's fueling it is a second one. Because what are you looking at when you have those feelings? What are you doing when you start to feel that way? What's fueling that negative feeling of comparison? Is it a post on social media? Is it a TV show that you're watching? Is it just the comparison of looking at other people? And if you have control of those situations, cut them out of your life. You can close the app on your phone and not look through social media. You can turn off the TV. If your friend group is just the worst, you can leave them alone for a day and not be with them. Because maybe you're unhappy with something about your life or have something that is causing you to compare yourself to others and you don't have control of it. If you're in that situation, reach out to your small group leader or me, and we would love to talk to you about steps that you can take to help fight against comparison and guard your heart with it. And lastly, celebrate what you do have. Instead of filling your heart with all the things that you don't have and all the things that you want to have, fill your heart with the truth of knowing that what you do have. And a great place to start is making a list of how God sees you, of all the wonderful truths of how valuable and how much worth you have because of how God sees you specifically. Spend some time thinking about what you're thankful for, about what you do have, and celebrate what you do have. That's what we are able to do, because instead of filling it with the negative things of comparison, we're filling it with gratitude and remind you of the truth that God doesn't compare you to others. And I just want to leave you with this one question. If you think that you do not compare yourself to others, or if you think that you are the only one that has this issue, you're just simply wrong. Everyone else is dealing with comparison, and we all could use help doing it together and walking through guarding our heart together. So I want to just leave you with this one question. How does comparison usually make you feel? Think about it.